abilities and the competency of the learner. Thank you so much, Mr. Boniface Boyer, a teacher at Molem Creek Premier School, talking to us about that issue of assessment test. But then let's go back to our top story. And our top story this morning has been about the high cost of living, for Kenyans, following that announcement by IPRA on the high fuel prices that will have an adverse effect on every basic commodity here in the country. It will touch on me and you, the common wananchi. So now I bring in Benson Okwaro, Assistant Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Union. Thank you so much, Mr. Okwaro, for talking to us here on KTN News Center this morning. I'd like to pick your mind, your sentiments on this new fuel prices, because last month, when we were talking about fuel prices, and the SecGen for COTU, Dr. Francis Atuli, came out and said probably the cartels were trying to control the sector. I don't know what your sentiments are right now, following this new announcement by IPRA.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda. Let me first correct my position as Deputy Secretary General COTU, not an assistant.
It's okay, Mr. Okwaro, thank you.
Having said that, yes, I know my boss talked about this issue about a month ago. And yes, this week again we have seen another hike in the price of petrol again, which in my view is a very difficult situation for the Kenyan citizens. So I think what I want to say is that it is unfortunate that the authority involved in this adjustment appear not to be realistic. They don't tend to be living in this country. Petrol prices, anytime they go up, it affects the production in this country, and therefore it extends to the general public. Every time that there is a hike in petrol prices, you will find that the matatus will hike their prices, and even the cost of production in the country also becomes high. So the general population, and particularly the Kenyan workers, are affected. So it is a concern of the Kenyan workers, the concern of COTU, that the authorities must try to do something about this, because if nothing happens, it appears that the country is going to run to a halt, considering that from where we are currently, considering the situation in the country, the question of COVID-19, which has affected the Kenyan workers seriously, it is unfair that you add another problem to the Kenyan worker.
But then, Mr. Okwaro, I mean, IPRA has actually absolved itself from any blame. They're talking about, the reason as to why there's this high cost of fuel rising almost every month. It's because of the taxes that have been put in place. And when you're talking about these taxes, we know the tax laws have been passed by Parliament. So are we looking at a situation whereby COTU might be looking at having a conversation with the National Assembly on these taxes?
It's true, we need to, because you see, Kenya has increased a lot of taxing. I think it appears because of the financial issues, the cash flow with the government, within the government system is one thing, if you like. And yes, I think the government is trying to do anything available to collect more taxes so that they are able to meet their budgetary obligations. And normally, more often than not, they will always transfer the burden to the taxpayers. And so, yes, there's need for us to talk to the Parliament. This is something that we have been doing continuously, most of the times, actually. Maybe the Kenyan people don't know, but anytime there's any legislation that comes around, we as COTU have always been able to talk to the relevant committees involved. Sometimes they do these things behind us, but anytime we know that there's anything like that going on, we have always lobbied with the relevant committees of Parliament, and we have done it successfully. except that this particular one, in my view, appears to have, they might have ignored us, but I'm sure the Secretary General, Dr. Francis Atwoli, could be doing something to see that we meet with the relevant committee on energy and see that something is done to alleviate this situation.
But the same workers that you represent, COTU represents, feels like COTU has totally failed them, because last month it was just a press statement that was released when the fuel prices were announced. They were higher, you know, and your members and, you know, the workers that you represent here in the country had, you know, a bit of some hope, like COTU is going to have a sit down with the government. Fuel prices probably are going to be reduced. Again, nothing happened. It was just a press statement. Again, this time round, we are here talking to COTU, you know, the representatives of the common Wananchi, having this conversation. But the question is, when are your members going to see a solid solution coming from COTU?
Well, I don't know whether COTU as an institution can make a solid solution without the other players. What the Kenyan people do not know, and maybe the workers do not know, that it is not possible for us to be able to tell them what we do on a day-to-day basis. Actually, our work is almost continuous. We deal with so many issues ranging from their increase of salaries. We are dealing with the issues related to COVID. We are dealing with the issues of price hiking. And we need to talk with these people time to time. It is not an issue of just releasing a press conference and saying, look, we are opposed to this. That may not be a remedy in itself. So the best way of dealing with this thing is to look at how to talk to government authorities. And I believe we are. And we will continue talking to the authorities so that we find out the best way of dealing with things. Because the government, as you are aware, is going through difficult times. This is not to say that we support the hike of the prices, but what we are saying is that it is true that the government has budgetary issues, and we need to be talking to them and see if solutions can be found. And we have talked to them before, and we have won, in many cases, on behalf of the Kenyan workers before. And I think even this time around, it's possible that we will continue talking and be able to get solutions.
All right. And it's good that you're talking to workers through KTN News Center this morning, and some of them are actually worried. They are worried because they don't know about their future in terms of their employment because of these high fuel costs, and especially those who've been employed through the SMEs.
Yes, it is true we have a problem of employment in this country because unemployment has increased quite a bit because you are aware that as we talk today, over 80% of the Kenyan workers are in the SMEs, and yes, if any time that you increase prices, definitely they get affected, and it has been made worse by the COVID situation that has affected this country for the period of the last 1 year. Mm-hmm. We are aware, and we have been meeting with government authorities through a multi-agency authority which was started, and COTU is part of it. And we meet quite often, almost on a weekly basis, and COTU is represented in that committee to try and see how to get ways of how to mitigate the issue of unemployment in this country, particularly as a result of the COVID-19 that has affected not only this country, but the whole world.
All right. On that note, I'd like to say asante sana Benson Okwaro, Deputy Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Union, talking to us about the fears of high cost of living as fuel prices post biggest jump. But then, let's get the sentiments of Kenyans across the country who have expressed their concerns over the fuel price increase.